So, as Maggie mentioned, my name's Ray Girn. I'm the CEO of LaPorte Schools. We're a network of 15 private schools, about 500 employees, and growing at a pretty breakneck pace. And so, one of the things that we've done over the last few years is really formalize our company's core values. Our mission statement, our vision, our guiding principles. And what we call, our 5 core values. And as a result of that, I've just done a lot of reading and thinking about the function and the role of core values in a business, and I'm excited to just share some of those thoughts with you today. I actually want to start with a personal anecdote that kind of speaks to the issue. When my wife and I were getting married in 2009, she knew that she was going to have 3 bridesmaids. She knew who they were. And she asked me, well, who are your groomsmen going to be? And my response was, I don't want any groomsmen. And she said, no, you need to have some. Like, I want to kind of have this type of wedding. Just pick, like, who are the people that are, really the guys that are really important to you? And my response was like, I can't do that. Like, there's so many friends that I have, and so many people that I love. There's my work friends, and my high school friends, and roommates, and my objectivist friends, and I can't, I can't differentiate between them to pin it down. That would be an injustice. And she thought I was nuts, right? So she thought, like, there's some kind of hierarchy and priority. Some of these people are more important to you, and they're more fundamental in your life. Just think about who they are and identify that. And I would make counter arguments like, but there's people that I talk to once a year, but the conversation is so meaningful, and they played such a role. Like, I was resisting the process. She won the argument, and I, eventually sat down and got a piece of paper out and tried to generate a list of the people that really matter to me and that I really cared about, and that I wanted to kind of give some special significance in this this important event in my life. And what I discovered blew me away. It was that there were 5 people who there was an absolute distinction between them and everyone else in terms of how important they were to me, what role they had played in my life, how they had shaped me, how much I cared about them. People that I would not want to have lived and died without having known and having had in my life. And I didn't know this. I didn't know this until I engaged in this process. And as a result, I ended up writing them a long letter, 3-page letter each, to each of them explaining, like, why they were so important either in my present or my past, and in what ways they contributed to who I am, and just why I cared about them. And what I learned from that is, like, 1, the pleasure of knowing yourself, and the importance of knowing yourself. And 2, how easy it is to not know yourself if you don't engage in this reflective process. Right? Before this process, there was no distinction in my mind, and I didn't make any distinction in terms of who I spent more time with. I didn't do any work, that person that I talked to once a year, to make sure that no matter what, I spent a weekend with him. It's just whoever kind of came along. And so when, a few years later, we went at LaPorte, at this company that I love, and this company that has many, many, many things that I love. We went to sit down and go through this reflective process and say, who are we? We're growing, we're adding a lot of employees. What are our core values? What is the way that we approach our mission? What is our mission? We knew what our mission was, but what's our characteristic way of approaching it? I brought with me, I remember that opportunity and the kind of value, and the experience I had kind of reflecting on, who I wanted as my groomsmen, and I brought that same approach. And it was a similar process, it was similarly interesting. So, initially on the list of core values was playfulness. I mean, we had a very prankster culture where we played practical jokes on each other, and, every year at Christmas, at the holiday party, we'd lip sync and make a video, and we thought, this is core to who we are. Right? But then when you start thinking about it, but there's people who are really central to our company who don't have that as a characteristic tendency. And what about the fact that we're on a crusade, and we feel like we're trying to change the world? And what about the solemnity and the seriousness of preserving concentration and the fact that other kids at other schools are happy and playful and fun-loving. That's true of our students, but is that what distinguishes us? And so we started going through this process, and you discover kind of what is core and what is not. What is it that really is central to who you are? And we came up with 5 core values. I call them values, but they're really modes of action or things we do or the approach that we take to achieving our mission. And I'll just, ring them off pretty quickly, but you can approach me afterwards if you want more depth on each of them. The first is to pursue individualization, right? Treat people as individuals, recognize what makes them unique as individuals, do the work. We do the work to customize, and it's a lot of work, to customize based on individual differences and individual needs. The individual child, first of all, right? The whole Montessori approach is one where you don't try to standardize. What you're trying to standardize is treating everyone, you're trying to universalize treating everyone like an individual. But the individual campus, don't try to make a campus in San Francisco an urban campus like a suburban campus in Southern California, the individual employee. So we noticed that there's certain employees that love the organization, just want to make as much money as they can. They'll take on any interesting, challenging role. There's others who want to do certain type of work. Even if it pays less, there's a type of work, they want to optimize for this type of work. And then there's others who they want to go home and be with their kids every evening and every weekend, and they contribute tremendous value, but it's really important for them to have that time doesn't get kind of interrupted. And you build around that. So we set ourselves a goal of let's create an approach. Let's create a standardized approach that has the capacity to customize in these ways. So this value of pursuing individualization was one that was core to who we were. Another one was embracing growth. We're in the business of helping kids grow up. We're growing as an organization. We're growing as individuals. So being friendly with failure, being willing to, having an expectation that you're going to be pushed. I had a teacher once who was ready to quit because she really despised her co-teacher. And I told her, I care, this is how I want you to approach this. It wasn't true, but I told her, and I told her that it wasn't true, but this is how I want you to approach this. I care about you so much that I scoured the world to find somebody that would push your buttons because of how much it would help you grow and how much better of a human being you'll become. So this teacher that you hate, that you want to quit because of, is a gift to you, right? So appreciate it as this gift I'm giving you. And we have this as a culture, and we create this mythology around embracing growth because it's part of who we are. So, I'll just ring off the others just in the interest of time. So live benevolence, right? Treating people, seeing the best in people, offering people your best, believing that we live in a world where good people succeed, being on that, having that conviction. So pursue individualization, embrace growth, live benevolence, seek truth. Seek truth. Montessori is a philosophy kind of based on observation that treats observation as sacred. We formulated it as seek truth because we see ourselves on a quest for truth. There's a story of Maria Montessori on her deathbed where she says, I keep pointing at the child and you keep looking at my finger, And so we're in the grip of these powerful philosophies and frameworks, Montessori, Ayn Rand's ideas, and they're a map, they're a guide, they point us towards the truth, but they can also become a distortion, and reminding ourselves, you gotta look at the facts, you gotta understand them for ourselves. We have parents and customers that want things, I have never seen parents that want to fire their child's teacher. No matter how bad the teacher is, the parents want the teacher to remain. So, having the clarity to seek the truth about, is this teacher actually delivering, the type of value that we need, for the students in her class or in his class. And then the last core value is achieve arete. Arete is synonym for excellence. Achieve excellence in performing your function and your contribution to the system. Remembering that our mission requires that we deliver results. Do not mistake trying and effort for achievement. It's like Yoda, do or do not, there is no try, right? And because we're so mission driven and we're so focused on having a good culture, one of the things that we were concerned about is losing sight of the fact that what matters is actually delivering results. And so we made that into one of our core values because we thought that was very central to who we were. So pursue individualization, embrace growth, live benevolence, seek truth, achieve verite, and we created an acronym, I am born to grow, that has the kind of first letters of each of these. And these core values really capture kind of the essence of who we are and who we want to be. And create and sustain and perpetuate our culture, and there's a Peter Drucker quote. I think he did say this. He's alleged to say that culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And there's this idea that you hear, it's pretty accepted wisdom that culture is more important than strategy. It's more important than opportunity. It's more important even than talent. And it's basically accepted as tried, tested, and true, from everyone from Google and Apple and Zappos to companies like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan to Chick-fil-A. Like everyone, if you ask them what drives your success, they'll talk about their culture. And I want to spend the rest of the time talking about why. Why is it that a company's culture or its implicit code of values, which I think needs to be made explicit, why is it that it drives success? Why in theory can't a company just make great choices? Make great choices, create great products and services, and make a lot of money and be successful. Why does it need values? Why does it need cultures? This is kind of an exercise that's kind of layered on top, and it seems not. And all these companies and all these people are saying not. But what's the kind of basis in reality for that need? And I think it's simple. There's just too many choices. There's too many choices. A business as an individual life involves a lot of choices every minute of every day, right? Where to spend time, where to spend money, who to hire, who to fire, what type of risk to take or not to take, how to deal with a morale issue, whether to kind of, like in our case, for example, give a refund or not. Do you want to, are you setting a precedent versus do you want to, have customer service? There's just issue after issue, and all of these issues have long-term consequences. So think of TV shows, right, or movies where there's time travel, like Heroes, Hiro Nakamura in Heroes, or Back to the Future or Star Trek. Whenever people travel back in time, they never want to do that much, right? Like they just do the minimum amount, affect the minimum number of variables you can, and then get back into present, right? Like don't mess up the space-time continuum. Don't do too many things because there's butterfly effect where the implications of that redound forward. And it's fiction, but I think it's a good kind of metaphor for the ways in which our choices have these redounding long-term implications, consequences. And every choice, whether you hire someone who's not a culture fit, let's say, but who does great work, or whether you decide to take a certain type of risk or not, whether we decide to open a school in Colorado because there's a group of parents that really want us there and we're willing to support us, or whether we go to Seattle because there's funding but there isn't, that group. All of these choices have these long-term consequences. They push us to kind of one variant or version of the future rather than another, right? So there's a lot of choices, and each of these choices have these implications. So how do you control and ensure that you make good choices as a business, or as an individual? There's no possible way to write down every single thing that you should do in every single situation, right? And we have interesting situations where different employees, our company's only 500 people, but different employees in different cities and different departments approach a situation in the exact same way. And you think, why is that? And it's not that we've written down this detailed set of instructions, right? You do that through a code of values. And that's the basic practical, I think, value that a code of values, that moral values, that culture, has. It guides the choices that people make. It's the equivalent of having a compass. Right? You're on a journey. You can't tell someone, this is how you get past that mountain over there. this is how you cross that swamp over there. But if they know what true north is, if they have that tool, and they're smart, they can figure out the rest, right? And so the code of values is like that compass. And in this way, it sensitizes the mind, right? It makes certain things come up. So we visited, maybe 3 years ago, we visited a building. And we're trying to decide whether we can maintain this building without doing too many renovations and open a school there. And there was a railing on the second floor. And our first question was, is this going to pass code? Is this going to meet the municipal code so that we can get it licensed and have kids on the second floor? And we thought yes. And we started to leave. Okay, this building kind of meets our specs. And then we stopped and went, wait a second, is it actually safe? Like, are we comfortable having kids on the second floor, right? And who cares if it meets code or not? And what happens is that starts to substitute reality, like the legal code, in entrepreneurs' minds, in businessmen's minds. And what we did is, like, we are able to stop ourselves and say, wait a second, do we think that this is right? And because we have this core value of seeking truth, and we're constantly doing these exercises and discussions and sending emails and orientations, emphasizing what does it mean to seek truth, and concretizing what does it mean to seek truth. And one of the things it means is you don't just go with the code. So when the Department of Social Services tells us we have to keep EpiPens under lock and key, we write them a letter back and saying, you know what, like, if a child has an allergic reaction, we don't want to be fumbling for a key. We don't agree. So if the law requires us to do this, you need to write us a letter telling us that against our professional judgment, against our founder's medical judgment, the law requires us to do this, and we'll kind of comply, if our objections are noted, and then they back off, right? But the point is that is the type of thing that is the type of response that kind of a code of values allows you to have, because it sensitizes your mind to certain issues that otherwise you kind of miss in the busy to and fro. And then, the last point I'll make is that, one of the kind of byproducts of having a code of values, it gives you conviction, and it gives you confidence and courage and belief in the rightness and the righteousness, of your company's mission. So we're a business where, we're in education, right? We're making money off of kids, right? And you have to have a lot of backbone. I mean, no matter what we do in terms of our motivations, there's going to be somebody saying the reason you fired that teacher is because you just want to make money, even though it costs us more money, and it's clear that we're doing it because we have certain standards in the classroom, or we had a case where, this is a different type of example. We had a case where a building was delayed, construction was delayed, and a school opened 4 months later, basically because the city screwed us, right? They kind of changed up the legal requirements to open a school. And then a year later, we had another building that was delayed totally because of our incompetence. But everyone thought it was because of the city. And we're like, everyone's sympathetic with us, and they're being really nice to us and patient. Like these government bureaucrats are getting in your way. And I know that that's not true. It's really, we messed up. So our values remind us that don't be tempted by that kind of false praise and that false support. Own up to the fact that, no, this has nothing to do with the city. We didn't get, our architect screwed up. And we screwed up because we hired the wrong architect. And so our values give us the kind of conviction to kind of, in the teeth of these types of challenges or lack of clarity, to stay true to who we are. And in a business like ours, where we're trying to make money in a field that's traditionally kind of nonprofit or public, that's really important. And it allows me, for example, when someone makes that accusation, my emotional response is like, how dare you? How dare you accuse us when I look at my team and I look at our employees and they're burning the midnight oil, trying to find ways to kind of offer our students the best possible education. How dare you accuse us of kind of hypocrisy or, cutting corners? And that conviction comes from, I know that we're all acting in accordance with a code of values that we've validated, that we know is true and good, and that we're proud of. So moral values, in my view, are not a luxury. They're not something that's an optional feature. Not in the life of an individual and not in the life of a business. They're a necessary guide to successful action And for that reason, I think I'd argue that they're the most immensely practical tool that we have in life. Thank you.